Ebusua memo akwa basoro nkokora de ube ye PhD TV ebusua na maka cho se Ghana amanyosema etwegu eye hot political update na mebe dom channel yi eso sanso na sema wodo afa ye papa na bo Kennedy Ohene Agyapong ho de ubenya ni nyina de fi channel we ya so nti ne no first time ba channel we so mesoro bo modern subscribe channel no fama me na share video we fama onu anu ye bi insurance de ekoso e wo my Ghana like na comment na mi hu so adwenkyere fa sa insemi ehu ediam giso eye Uncle Addo Ken ebusua Akwatia by election de da yekoso yan pitiri ai oda na se eja se da ye papa bi na wosuo se da ye bodo na wosuo ni ende ni hina na se waye de obo pitiri wasore ai nti ejebo eja nde nya ba bedu ye hu ni esisi o ye wina eni ye hu de o ye lusa ne ho nsem de afi ba ne eba na me de megusu update mu sa nti gusu watch na ewu ya so on subscribe nso abomode na subscribe why na busuya po Adom-Otchere akasa e de afa Akwatia by election no na in fact me de po nsem o kan bi enu amete ase ai o say o be kire the reason why ya eye MPP for yelusu sa eye seat no na in fact o kire mu a de di kan Justin Kodu Afrimpon nkofo bi pese o betu ni free position into mama boa no e wo sa campaign na omokoye wo hono no because onu say o wini a obenya eja 10% bi wo hore akase akwa na ogbo adwuma sanso ne say o say o kire mu ane Bawumia so koye no na ne ono nkwa ne koye okono nkwan na kene Japan supporters nka ho kene so koye ono so nkwa ne koye na so Bawumia supporters nka ho brand so koye the same thing nti won de wake kansem ni bebere dia bobobom e bia wo de obeti ase ebusua mepese be kwa Akwatia po Adom-Otchere na nsem okaye.
So we know who won the election, but why did the MPP lose an election that the exit poll from Musa Dankwa suggested that they might be able to win? We think we found out why they lost, but let's first look at the Musa Dankwa analysis. If it's ready, I hope it is. If it's ready, we can put it up and then assess it. The earlier announcement. Okay, so this is NDC's Bedu will win Akwatia by-election by at least 53%, Musa Dankwa predicts. So this was the first prediction by Musa Dankwa. There's no date here, but I think 2nd September. Okay, I don't know. That's today. That's today. Anyway, so I'm sure that GhanaWeb was reproducing what Musa Dankwa had said. NDC's Bedu will win Akwatia by-election by 53%, says Musa Dankwa. And then let's look at the exit poll. Aha. So in the exit poll, Musa Dankwa put this up. Party affiliation, Akwatia exit poll. What is an exit poll, by the way? I remember many years ago, I was talking to a journalist and she said to me that she was not sure what an exit poll was and we had a big fight. Anyway, the exit poll is when people have voted and they come out and then you ask them, who did you vote for? Or which party did you vote for? And then they tell you, I voted for this party or I voted for that party. You have to trust that they are speaking the truth. In America, exit poll is very, very important because almost every voter tells them the truth and they are not afraid to share their voting preference. In Africa, because of our nascent democracy is still very new and because we are coming from military coup d'etats and we are coming from don't keep quiet, if you say they'll come and arrest you, blah, blah, blah. And so people don't really vouch out and give the information that I voted for this or I voted for that. We all try to be neutral when we go into the poll. We don't want to say we are NDC or MPP. We just want to say we are nice, neutral people. There's nobody who is neutral anywhere. You can be MDC today and MPP tomorrow. That's very allowed. In fact, that is the independence of the voter. That today I vote here, tomorrow I vote here, depending on what they are telling me. That's really proper democracy. When you get to that stage where you have 30% of voters who voted the last time to the left are voting to the right and vice versa, that's when you have real democracy. But here in our society, we are just getting there. So I was delighted that Musa Dankwa was able to put up an exit poll. This is the exit poll that he showed. NPP, 51% of people who were polled, he doesn't give us all the details, but people who were polled said 51% said NPP was going to win. 44%, well, said they voted for NPP, not NPP was going to win. They voted for NPP. 44% said they voted for NDC. Now, this is the exit poll that threw the MPP into the frenzy sometime around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, towards the end of voting when this exit poll came out today. Now, 3% of the people told Musa Dankwa that they were floating voters, and then The other parties were 2%, and the non-disclosed was 1%. So this exit poll suggested to the observers that the New Patriotic Party were most likely going to pick up the seats by something like 51%. Mr. Danko had predicted earlier that 53% was going to the NDC, but he gave the exit poll to the MPP. The results comes and the NDC has won, very close to the original prediction. What do we do with this exit poll? What shall we say it was? Were the people telling him something wrong? Was he doing guesswork? What was the exit poll about? But ultimately, the NDC won. Why did the MPP lose the election, and why did the NDC win the election? The first red flag for the NDC was that they had put back the exit poll. The first red flag for the NDC was that they had changed the candidate who had developed bad blood with the original guy. And so there was going to be a lot of bad blood amongst them. And so in fact, there were videos where people had threatened that they would vote for NPP because their candidate had been sidestepped in this primaries that had been done. And the lawyer for the former candidate had been elected. I think his name is Bediakon. He's the one who eventually won. He had been elected. So there was a bit of bad blood. So it was expected that the MPP will take advantage. By the way, Ben Efson, maybe they'll find it for us. Ben Efson also predicted that the NDC were likely to win the election. Ben Efson, the age-old pollster, Ben Efson, he predicted the NDC were likely to win the election. Anyway, so it was thought in Akwatia that because of this division, you're going to have a situation where the MPP can take advantage of. But it would appear that this came at a bad time for the MPP. Let me have the candidates again. Because the MPP is in a frenzy, very busy to elect a candidate to lead the party, and there's a lot of connotations within that process. So who is going to be party chairman depends on who wins the presidential elections in January. Who is going to be general secretary depends on who wins the presidential elections in January. Who and whom are going to form the national executive of the MPP depends on who wins the elections in January. Who is going to be regional chairman depends on who wins the elections in January. So almost everything in MPP depends on who wins the elections in January. I spoke to one of the important candidates here, and he told me, I asked him that what's happening in Akwatia, and he said, I don't know. Nobody is telling me anything. Nobody has said we should come. Nobody. That's what he was telling me. And so I reckon from that time, I spoke to a few journalists, and they don't want me to mention their name, but I can. I always have this conversation with journalists. I called them, I said, what are you picking up? What are we getting here? And it was beginning to look like when Kennedy Agyapong decides to go to Akwatia, Bawumia people don't really want to be seen with him campaigning. When Dr. Bawumia goes to Akwatia, Kennedy Agyapong people don't really want to be seen with him campaigning. It's not anybody's fault. That's the nature of politics. The election has come at a time when they are in the frenzy for their primaries. They had just submitted their forms last week, and now they are going into the event. You are presidential candidates, you go there, you are spending money on what basis? Are you spending money that the delegates of Akwatia should vote for you in January? Are the delegates outside Akwatia more important than the delegates in Akwatia, given that the addition of the seat to the MPP might not do much? You know, and I'll give you another reason why the NDC needed to win this. I'll tell you. That's coming. So that's really happened. And as I was watching the campaign, and I had people in Akwatia, when was it, Friday? And I asked them to check. I was watching the campaign. It was beginning to look like that. Kwabene Japan, for instance, didn't find his way there at all because he's going to make a calculation. So I go to Akwatia, a seat that doesn't add, doesn't subtract. And I go and spend money with delegates. And then they vote for the MPP candidate. Will they necessarily vote for me at the presidential primaries in 31 January? They might not. So he looks at it and says, Charlie, look, it's Akwatia matter. Let it slip. Now, the leadership of the party, who are now in the leadership, that is Henry Adom-Otchere, very hardworking. Justin Kodria, very hardworking. Chairman Bute is representing the chairman. In fact, the chairman is not opposed. He's not feeling too well. So there are people who are challenging Justin Kodria. They want to become the general secretary instead of Justin Kodria sometime after January next year. They are not going to marshal their support and join a campaign that Justin Kodria, in his capacity as the incumbent general secretary, is running, so that the seat is won. Kodria looks good, and then he probably picks up an edge as a result of Akwatia over the other person who wants to be general secretary. So all of these underlining factors were big in the MPP campaign. It was so the MPP could not gather themselves together to take advantage of the division in the NDC. Then you saw the NDC with the government machinery effectively used. Julius Debra, the chief of staff, went there on his own with the Eastern Region appointees. Johnson Asiedu Ketia and the rest went in. Now, they went in to fight and they had the resources. The National Security, Richard Jakpa and co. were all seen in Akwatia. So this is the explanation from our perspective, and you can disagree with it. That's very fair. From our perspective, that's what it looks like, but you can think about it and see. So Brian Agyapong goes to Akwatia, and he's in two minds. Should I go and spend 100,000 cedis in Akwatia? How will that 100,000 cedis inure to my benefit in January? Is it money thrown away? Maybe yes, maybe no. If we win Akwatia and the guy comes to parliament and we are 88, so what has happened? So this was a problem. And so I believe that this came at a bad time for the MPP and no leadership at the top. The national leadership is on one leg because some of them are running again, some are not running again. This looks like it's their cup of tea. I'm running against them. I don't want to participate in this. I don't have to fit into this. All of those analyses are very, very important. So you saw that presidential candidate Kwame Agyapong did not even go there. Dr. Mahama Bawumia did quite a bit of work there. He went there more than once. But if Dr. Bawumia is going, and he's not going as a leader of the MPP, and he's going as one of the candidates for January, will I join him if I'm in Kennedy Agyapong's camp? Will I say, oh, Bawumia is coming? No. So Bawumia goes with his people in Bawumia camp. Kennedy Agyapong goes with people in Kennedy Agyapong camp and try and rack up some support in some parts where he's confident that the delegates and the polling station executives are going to vote for him. So it was really a big crisis period, and that is why the MPP were hoping that the NDC does not contest, because this was going very difficult. At a time when it's coming, it's very, 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 very difficult for them. And that's what happened, and that's what reflected in the results, except that we still don't understand how the exit poll showed such a big lead for the MPP, and eventually by the time the results were counted, the MPP had lost the election. So what shall I say to these men? Okay, congratulations for all of you